Mr. Richard George, Mr. Bill Lauderdale, Miss Deborah Rule, Joe Woolley, Thomas Smith, Charles Selman, and Mr. Ellis Tillotson. We have 4 questions, and so we're going to ask them all to answer all 4 questions, and we're going to rotate the order. Same rules apply. And the first question is, explain why we need or do not need a new jail.
Richard George, running for re-election in District 5. Given the condition of our current jail facility, it's very obvious that we're in need of a modern facility. The criminal element in the community must be held in check in order to maintain a viable community to raise your youth in for our future. The downside of a modern facility is the cost of construction, and furthermore, even more serious is the cost of operations of a larger modern facility, even as effective and needed as it is currently. Obviously, the economic conditions of the day, the expenses that you face at home and in businesses, more or less prohibits the amount of taxes that would be necessary to be raised over the next 3 or 4 years after a construction project in order to maintain and operate a facility. Hopefully, in the coming years, shortly in the coming years, our economy as a community and as a country as a whole will improve to where there won't be such a serious burden on the taxpayer. Because we at the county level, a taxing authority, we have to be very aware that not only are we a taxing authority, the school board and the school system has its needs as well as municipal government. And we're all taxing the same people. So that burden must be kept in mind constantly in preparing for whatever future endeavors we may undertake in the area of acquiring debt. Thank you.
Mr. Lauderdale.
My name is Bill Lauderdale. I'm an independent candidate for District 4 Supervisor. Our Sheriff's Department, their employees risk their life every day, put it on the line for us, working in that jail that we currently have. It's an old jail that was built a long time ago. It does not meet any state standards as far as being able to keep even state prisoners in there once they've been convicted. Richard basically said everything as far as the economy and why we can't really build one right now. There's been a lot of work that has gone into looking at our whole situation, and we realize we've got to have something, but now is not the time to try to build something. But the planning is continuing and will continue into the next term. I'd just like to see something that we have to keep and maintain good employees with the Sheriff's Department, and that's just like any other job. You have to have good working conditions to do that.
Ms. Rule.
Good evening. My name is Deborah D. Rule, and I'm running for Supervisor District 2. I also agree that at this time we do not need to be worrying about building a new jail. However, our inmate health and well-being is very important. They may have done something wrong, however, they are still human beings and they still need to have the treatment that they deserve. However, when there is more money, I do not believe that we need to be buying property that does not belong to the county already to build it. I also believe that there are things that we can do to expand the current jail, because I know our numbers of inmates are down, and when they're down, we don't have to have more room, but it would be nice to have more room and have a little bit more modern facility. But I think there's other things we can do. We can do a bridge across the road and put a building on the corner where the youth detention center is. That's one suggestion I've heard. Another suggestion is to eventually build another jail, but do it on property that the county owns and not buying somebody else's property for millions of dollars. So again, I do agree with Mr. George and Mr. Lauderdale that at this time our economic, we just can't come up with the money, and it's just going to have to wait. But whatever we can do to help the Sheriff's Department and whatever we can do to help our inmates should be our highest priority. Thank you.
Mr. Woolley?
I'm Joe Woolley, candidate for Supervisor in District 5. The jail is definitely an issue, and the old jail needs to be a lot done to. But I've checked with our neighboring states, and they've privatized some of their areas, and I think, and I've talked to a gentleman over in Tallulah where they have about 1,000 beds that's privatized, and it would be cheaper per day, according to them, than what we are paying now to take them all the way to Essequibo County and haul them back and forth. And I think it's an area that we need to look into to make sure, to see if it's feasible. But we always check with the laws, and the laws in Mississippi are a little different than in Louisiana. And I don't know that they've checked into it, and they may have, and I don't know. But I would be interested in finding out exactly where we stand there. And of course, we wouldn't have to have it right in town if we had a privatized jail system. And that way we could put it maybe at Sears or somewhere like that, because you're talking about a fenced-in area with a building and all that, which we have a building out there. Excuse me. But, and look into it and just see what we got there, and then maybe do that, and then we could redo the jail we have to hold, the real criminals that we have until we can do something with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I'm Thomas Smith. I'm running for District 2 Supervisor. And yes, I agree. I think we do need a jail. Is it feasible at this time with our economy the way it is? No, it is not. I won't keep going on to sound like a broken record. I agree with all the people that have spoke before. With the economy the way it is, we cannot afford to build a jail, nor do we need to tax the taxpayers of Warren County anymore to build a jail. Do we need to build it on county property? Absolutely. There's no point in going out, spending millions of dollars to buy property when we have thousands of acres that we own throughout the county and large parcels that we could put a jail on. Some being directly across the street or catty corner from the courthouse, as was mentioned earlier at the old youth detention center. So yes, I do think we need a jail. Is this the time to do it? Certainly not, but I do not think we need to sink money into doing programs to do studies to know if we need a jail like we've done in the past. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Selman?
My name is Charles Selman, and I'm the District 3 Supervisor running for re-election. I think it's very clear that, yes, we do need a new jail. Analogy, if you had a house that had a hole in the roof, whether it was economic time or not, you would try to fix that hole. We got a jail that got several holes. You're talking about a jail that's been built in 1907, probably before my mother was born. The maintenance by itself, just to keep that jail up, if you had an idea how much money we're spending on just maintenance, not talking about the problem or operation problem that we have, we throwing good money away. We need to build a jail as soon as we possibly can. But we also need to think about regional. I'm for building the jail, but I'm also building the jail so that Warren County, Vicksburg, can actually make money from the jail being present, similar to what Issaquena has. Issaquena built a jail, they built a jail that was big enough to house their prison, but at the same time they built a jail to house other people's prisons too, that surrounding area. Now we're talking about economic development. We're talking about making money for the county. We want to build a jail so that Warren County can benefit. One way we can benefit by building a jail is build a jail too big. Too big for our residents or too big for our inmates that may be incarcerated. If we build a jail that is big enough to house our inmates or the ones that may be incarcerated, we need to build a jail that would be twice the size that would house others so that we can actually make money and turn this to an economic tool. 1907, with the problem we have just with operational, emphatically, we need to build a jail as soon as we possibly can. Now, one thing we don't need to do as county supervisors, we are very cautious and we're very frugal with taxpayer money. We know where this jail is going to have to come from. We know that we're probably going to have to do a bond issue. We know that the taxpayer is going to have to bite the bullet and pay for it. We know that. We are taxpayers. But I think that this is something that we got to take initiative on and go ahead and do it.
Mr. Selman, you have 30 seconds.
Again, yes, I do think we need to build a jail, and I think we need to build it to make money for Warren County and the city of Vicksburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tillotson.
My name's Ellis Tillotson. I'm supervisor candidate for District 5. I'm not necessarily for or against the jail as such because I hadn't done enough research on the old jail to know whether or not it's what kind of shape it's in. The only information I get is what I see in the paper, and usually it says that the grand jury has toured it and it's dilapidated and about to fall down. The reason I'd be against the jail is from the tax standpoint. I'm not for raising anybody's taxes on anything. My accountant tells me now that I pay 45 cents of every dollar I make goes to some type of taxes, either federal, Social Security, state, or county taxes plus fees. They got tired of calling them taxes, so they started calling them fees. Now, when I was growing up, most of my parents and grandparents taught us that if you committed some kind of crime, got put in jail, you lost your rights. Well, all I hear is how bad we need a new jail, and as far as I'm concerned, the criminals lost their rights. Now, I don't doubt that we may need a new jail building, but the only plans I have seen is, they call them Cadillac plans. They're more like Lamborghini plans. There was one county built a new jail for $13 million, housed 500 inmates. But we're supposed to be a retirement community and a tourist community. Now, do we want to house all of the state inmates that we can cram in? And another thing that I see, I've never seen any government run anything and make money off of it. If we are going to have a new jail, we should be looking at private companies. I've talked to a company in North Carolina that didn't say they would come over here and build a jail, but they would entertain the idea of coming over here and build a jail, privately funded, privately operated, private health care, private retirement, not taxpayer dollars to pay for everything. And then we're building, even if we build a jail, especially if we go with the ones that their plans are calling for now, we're asking taxpayers to pay for a facility.
You have 30 seconds, Mr. Tillotson.
To have a better place to live than most of the taxpayers that's going to pay for it. I think that's wrong. And we should
15 seconds, Mr.
we should
Tillotson.
look at what could be done with that, and then I believe in history. So therefore, we should look at maybe keeping something downtown close to the vicinity of where our current jails are. But private jail would be the way to go.
Your time's up, Mr. Tillotson. Our next question is, why does the county borrow against next year's taxes to pay current expenses?
The county has to have a fund available, cash on hand, in order to be able to pay expenses from the end of the fiscal year until the first part of the following year when taxes are brought in. It's approximately $7 million that needs to be on hand to do that. There have been in the past, and I will say that the majority of the money that was used up was done while I was not in office. There was some turmoil, and I know that the board didn't work as good as we have this term together to try to make sure the budget was intact. And in doing so, that fund had been depleted somewhat. We have made an honest effort to get that fund back up and have done so. In fact, even in this recession, we've been able to increase that fund, and this year we were even able to give our employees a 3% raise. That's the reason that we have a fund.
Thank you, Mr. Lauderdale. Ms. Rule?
Hi, Dee again. Okay. I personally don't believe in tax anticipation loans. I don't believe in any type of loans, period. My family has always been raised with no credit cards. We live on our cash so that we always have whatever it is we have. If we don't have cash for something, we just don't buy it. And I believe that's the way the county should run also. It also should run with a very good, solid budget, which we do not have right now. Our current board has not done a good job in stripping that budget down. I have found thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of waste that have been wasted already, which will never be done again if I'm elected. But we do have to have this fund that Mr. Lauderdale was talking about, and I do understand that. It was always a rainy day fund. However, we need to stop borrowing to make that fund work. We need to cut, like we all have done at home. We have to do the same in this county. Cut the budget down, trim where we can trim, save our dollars, and then we won't need to spend literally tens of thousands of dollars to a bank because we had to borrow money to pay our bills the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rule. Mr. Woolley?
I think most of the answers that probably Bill and they give is probably the best they're going to get, because we got, like I said, I got to have the money as she was speaking, with a rainy day. But we don't need to borrow if we can help it. And I think there's a lot of ways. There's ways to cut from what we're doing. And I've looked around the county, and I've been in construction for many years, and I see some cuts that can be made and some mistakes that have been made that beyond their control, I think. But anyway, so we wouldn't have to borrow money or take last year's money or next year's money to pay for the first of the year. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
I agree with the Ms. Rule's borrowing money aspect, but I think in our situation and with the county, sometimes we can cut spending, we can downsize the budget, we can get rid of things that we don't need here and there. But I think that our expenditures are still going to be so great that we're still going to have to borrow some money. I don't believe that we can fully cut out borrowing the money. I don't think that's feasible at this point, nor may it ever be feasible. But can we cut the budget to where we don't have to borrow as much? Yes, I believe that can be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Selman?
I think that this is a common practice around the state where counties and cities borrow money to meet their obligations. But let me just take you back for a few minutes. You know, the last 4 or 5 years, we have not laid anybody off. No person has lost their job. We are very frugal with taxpayers' money. But I think that if you look at it as a whole, the county have been managing your money very well. Now, if you take into the recession and you take into economic downfall and where everybody there was not plenty of money on hand. If you take that in consideration, we run all the budgets in the county. Nobody have stopped service. You haven't lost any service. You hadn't paid any more taxes in the last 4 years. Nothing have really changed for us financially We haven't lost some of the service that we provide now, but the economic situation have changed. So what we had to do is basically we had to get in a situation where we got in a situation where we had to keep county running, keep the county running. Now, if you look at our budget from dollar to dollar, you will find that every dollar is accounted for, and this is public record. You can go to any of the supervisor, any of the board of supervisor office and say, I need to see your budget. That's not a problem. I'll go to the chancery clerk. And you can count for dollar from dollar for where the dollar is going to. If anyone, any person think that the county is swallowing the money or the money is being misused, come on, go with the budget. Let's talk about economics, how we have kept the county running at not a taxpayer expense, but we've kept the county running at the same expense you've been paying the last 4 or 5 years. We borrow money not necessarily because the county going to stop running, but we're trying to provide service for our citizens that you are more comfortable with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selman. Mr. Tillotson?
I'm against borrowing money to supplement the budget. We're told that they're doing a good job with our money and all, and I'm not saying that they're not doing the best that they can possibly do. But I've been in business, owner-operator, self-employed for 32 years. If I didn't do a good job of my business, I didn't get a check. That's simple. Well, they get a check regardless, whether they do a good job or a bad job. And the reason I'm running for the supervisor is because of the budget. It was about 5 years ago, I went to one of the board meetings, got my name on the agenda, and went in there and talked to them about equipment, about the leases and different things they have on equipment. Then I guess basically nothing ever happened from me spending my time going down there and talking to them about it, and I give them examples of where they could save money on equipment. Currently, or just recently, we had some motor graders that were on lease. Well, somebody didn't keep up with the terms of the lease, and they wouldn't take them back. Well, in addition, we had already gotten more motor graders, so we had a fleet of motor graders just not too terribly long ago. And then what happened was they had to spend a lot of money on the old ones when the lease run out to get the companies to take them back. That's not an example of a good manager. Somebody did not understand the laws of the terms of that lease, or they simply just did not keep up with the lease to know when they could exceed the hours or not exceed the hours or the time in which they had to be turned in. There's a lot of instances where things like this has happened. We have, for the size of our county, we have as much equipment as any of the biggest counties in the state of Mississippi. There's so much unorganization in all departments, but especially in the road department, and that's where a tremendous amount of our money is spent, is in the road department. So it all goes back to the buck stops here, and that's the supervisor's place. They can blame it on whoever didn't do their job, but it all goes back to the buck stops here. And
You have 30 seconds, Mr. Tillotson.
I assure you that I will take responsibility, because I have taken responsibility for what my companies have done for the last 32 years. And I have still been able to stay in business. There's been times when I didn't get a check or didn't get much of a check, but I have been able to stay in business, and I didn't raise your taxes to do it. And then every 4 years we get a tax increase. They'll tell you, well, we didn't raise the millage, so therefore we
Your
didn't
time's
raise
up,
your
Mr.
tax.
Tillotson.
But you still got a tax increase when you got your car. Given the restraints that county government must operate under as to your abilities to adjust and amend to the economic times, legislation over the years has been created to allow governments to subsidize their revenue sources, which are very limited, to meet the demands of providing public service to the citizens upon their demand, which is quite a bit different from private business enterprise. The government services are expected, demanded, and well-deserved by the taxpayers and must be delivered in the areas of public safety, well-being of the citizens of the community. That burden must be borne every year. Revenue sometimes has a difficult time keeping up with it. The ability to adjust the revenue stream was obviously recognized in the legislation process many, many years ago, and that's why the ability to borrow funds on anticipated tax revenue was created and allowed and has been utilized to weather difficult times, which we have worked diligently to eliminate each year the amount necessary to borrow on an anticipation basis, and shortly we will be out of that situation and back on the, if the economy allows us to continue to be able to utilize the existing revenue against the, unfortunately, ever-increasing cost of providing service.
Our next question is, how are you going to get the county through these hard times with low revenues?
It's going to be difficult. We're going to have to try to create jobs any way we can possibly do it. We're going to have to look at our tax inducements and incentives. We currently give them to people that come to Vicksburg and Warren County from out of the state or from other parts of the state. But when we have a daycare and we spend a little over $600,000 putting in a facility, and then we have a little over 100 kids and 17 employees. And I asked one time about some kind of tax breaks or inducements because I'd read in the paper where one of these suppliers was getting a break for going to the industrial park. They were going to have 20 employees and were spending about $600,000 on a facility. Now, there again, that company didn't stay here. They were here 4 or 5 years and they're out of business and gone. My learning center for the children is still in business, and we still struggle to pay our taxes every year, but we get them paid. Now, one thing that we could look at is for those business owners and business managers, if they would consider hiring more people, maybe we can work out some kind of tax break on inventory for them depending on the type of business they're in. Now, I know it couldn't be a large amount, but any inducements to help local people expand current businesses is something that we'd have to look at. But to bring people in from out of state and they stay a few years and we shoot the moon for them and then they leave when the tax inducements are gone, that has to stop. And the only thing we can do is try to create jobs. And there again, I have created jobs in my 32 years in business. And I know different things that I have thought of that may or may not be feasible and may or may not work in this community, because there's a lot of things that won't work. But at least I think outside the box and try to think of ways that we can generate jobs for the community. The only way to improve the community, we got to put people back to work.
You have 30 seconds, Mr. Tillotson.
And until they go back to work, they can't pay their taxes, they can't go to the grocery store, they can't buy gas, and a lot of them are committing crimes so that they can just feed their family. So we've got to look at different ways to do things other and think outside the box and try to generate jobs any way we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tillotson. Mr. Selman?
You know, these are good times and bad times. Of course, we're in an economic situation that I think that everybody's aware of. But I think one of the ways to increase revenues, you got to come up with some new ideas, and I think that, you know, example would be the city of Vicksburg and Warren County, and as well as the school district. We need to work together as one. I think that the biggest thing that we got going on here is that, and we are not capitalizing, we probably need to learn to spend more money in this direction. That's tourism. Tourism is a #1 business in the state of Mississippi. However, since we on the river, we got the highway, we need to learn to benefit from people driving through Warren County or through Vicksburg. We need to try to encourage them to stop in different ways and spending money. Tourism is one of the ways that we can help our economy. This is about economic development, and it shows you the ones who have experience and ones who don't. Economic development, when you can put people to work, when people can go to X company and get a job and support their family, this is what taking care of a community is about. When you can bring business into your community to say, I'm going to offer X jobs and I'm going to hire X amount of people, but I can't come unless you have some type of incentive. So this is where government step in to say, I'll give you some incentive if you hire X amount of people. But my point is, we need to think more term economic development. Economic development. The state of Mississippi, with all the counties, all the cities, is facing the same situation. Everybody dealing with an economic downfall. So therefore, we need to become more creative. We need to learn to think different than we have been thinking in the past. We do need to go back and look at some of the expenditures that we've been spending and maybe look at how can we tighten up our belt. But not only the government need to do that, we as citizens need to do that also. Because if this economy is going to turn around, it's going to take a little bit of everybody input. I just want to encourage you to, first, economic development as one community, city, county, and school, as one community, we can pull Vicksburg back up, and we can then create jobs inside of Vicksburg.
Mr. Selman, you have 30 seconds.
One thing is very important. We need to make sure we help to maintain businesses that's already here. But we also need to encourage business to come to Vicksburg so there will be jobs and other opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Selman. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Selman hit on a good point of us getting together as a county government, a city government, and our school district. You know, anytime an industry comes into a town, there's a couple things they look at. One is the education system. Two is the housing market. I think we can do a lot of things if we utilize working together to better our school district, better our school system, to make people want to move to Vicksburg. I have worked for a company for 10 years now, and we do a lot in industrial business. And I've seen a lot of businesses come, and I've seen a lot of businesses go. You drive on our harbor project, and there's several empty buildings that one time employed 20, 30, 40, 100 people. They're empty, or some of them only employ a skeleton crew now. I think economic development, as Mr. Selman said, is one of the things that we really need to concentrate on. Getting people back to this town. This town has a river, a railway, and a major interstate that runs through it. There's absolutely no reason that it's not booming. Besides, we need to get together and band together and get some people here. We give them tax incentives, and what do? As Mr. Tillotson said, they stay 5 years, 10 years, whatever the incentive is, and they leave. Are there things we can do there? Is it, I would like to look at laws, or can we give them an incentive for 5 years and put in the contract that they have to stay another 5, and if they don't, there's a penalty to where they pay that first 5 years of taxes back. Is that legal to do? That's something that I would like to look into. But first and foremost, if we can band together, better our school system, get some companies here, and draw people here, Warren County will be thriving as it did 10 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Woolley?
I think both of the gentlemen, all three of them, been reading my notes here. And my plan would including businesses, is that we have so much to offer in Warren County. Like you said, the interstate, the river, the railroad system. We have, we got trains that come across that bridge, probably 900 a day, and that could take us in and out. Now, we have one problem is out of Sears, we don't have a railroad out there to offer because the property was purchased on the wrong side of the interstate. But that's neither here nor there. We have good schools to offer them, but we have so much to offer, and we need to get out there and let these businesses know what we do have to offer, that and what we have and everything. Of course, like I said, people say one of the things was about the tourism. Well, Vicksburg does tourism, but we need something to put our people to work, and the tourism will put some to work that'll bring us a little money in. But we have a lot of people here in Warren County that does not have a job, that need a job and need it bad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woolley. Ms. Rule?
Oh, it's just me, Dee, again. Okay, this is a very, very complex question, and it takes us into a lot of different areas. Number one, some of the people who have spoken already did bring up a very good point, in that industry, when it comes in, two things that they do look at is housing and schools. Well, our schools are failing. We have a 45% dropout rate in our high schools. That's unacceptable. That has to change. Our housing market is deplorable. We have empty lots. We have empty houses. We have houses that could be turned into good, solid rental houses, but they sit there and fall apart because nobody will do anything about them. But mostly, we're talking about industry, and we need to bring more industry in. But you got to remember one thing. Who is in charge of bringing in this economic development? The Pork Commission. The Pork Commission has turned away more people than anybody else in this town. I brought in a television network. We were going to employ 160 people. We had a building picked out. Everything was going great. I got no respect. I got no help from the county. I got no help from the city. They stubbed their nose at me. So guess what? I sold it. It is now going to California. This is what we have to stop. I did it because I had absolutely no alternative. We should have alternatives. We should have more industry here. We must bring in more industry, but the first thing we must do is take away from the Port Commission the economic development. It needs to be put in hands of people who are experts at bringing in industry. It's not there right now. We also need to bring in tourism. With my television network, we are doing a series here called A Place to Call Home, where we're taking dilapidated houses, we're refurbishing them, and then they're lotteried off to people who have low incomes. Somebody will walk away with a free home. This is going to be televised all over the world at HGTV and A&E. This is a type of tourism we need. We need to bring in more tourism.
You have 30 seconds, Ms. Rule.
So this is one way that I'm helping to bring in more tourism, is by showing the world Vicksburg, one of the best cities in the world, with the river, an interstate, our railroads, and our great military park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rule. Mr. Lauderdale?
There are several ways that we can get the county through tough times, and we've already been doing that because we have had tough times the last couple of years. And basically the first thing to do is what we have been doing, and hopefully the next board will do, and that is not spend any more than you're bringing in. That's been the problem. That's what caused everything in the first place, and we've got to continue that practice, which I'm dedicated to do. The other thing is working with our existing industries that are here. Times are tough for them. They're tough for all our businesses, and we have to work with them, and we have been working with them, and that's got to continue. Trying to get new industries in here is a surmountable job right now, but we have been able to get two that have come in. A chain manufacturer out at Ceres. It's going to be hiring 40 to 50 people. It's one of the oldest, it is the oldest chain manufacturer in the United States, so we're looking forward to continue working with them. We've also got a company that has bought out the Laterno plant here in Vicksburg. They hadn't officially closed that to my knowledge right now, but that is something that I'm very excited about, that we hope that will bring a lot of jobs here also in Vicksburg. Our transportation system is great. We are on the river. We are on the highways. We've got airports available, but we do have a couple of detriments that makes it difficult to develop here. One is our terrain. It's very expensive to develop. And that's something that we have to battle and work with those that are trying to do development here. And then the national park surrounds a good bit of our properties also. So that limits the amount of area we have to work with. But I'm committed to continue working to make things better here economically and get more jobs for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lauderdale. Mr. George?
In order to endeavor to make progress in the future, dealing with these difficult times today, city, county, school officials have met monthly in different settings and discussed plans for the future, things that could be tried. We've contacted the Mississippi Development Authority, Mississippi Economic Council, state organizations dealing with economic development, trying to be prepared to respond to any opportunity that may avail itself to further this community. Given the pressures that prevail on the economy as a nationwide, the county, any county, large or small, has a very difficult time responding and enduring the enormous pressure and competition across the country for whatever businesses may have expansion plans. There's a great deal of pressure and competition. These planned developments work you for every way in the world they can and pit you against one another across this country to see who will give away the most to get their favor. And that's a very difficult, dangerous situation to operate in. That's why we work closely with the state organization to give us the best advice that we feel that we can have in these times, and we will continue to do that.